again. This is Ada with Jail Widow. Nice to have you. I hope all my equipment is working right now. Oh my gosh, it has been a long day. I have been doing back to back court live viewing for 2 weeks, and I got about another 2 weeks of everyday court viewings. We are doing the George Kelly trial. For those of you who don't know, I'm Ada K. Brown. I am a jail widow. I'm here to share with you the ins and outs and what to expect, what you should and shouldn't do, in my humble opinion, if you lose a spouse to prison. But this doesn't always mean just a spouse, it could be a child, it could be a parent, anybody that's in your family to prison. It has been since 2009 since I lost my husband to prison. And I really, really have learned so much, and not by my own choice, mind you. It's not something that I chose to do. It was something I was forced into doing. So, I just lost something. I am one who really, really struggled when my husband was arrested, because my husband had never had a criminal background. My husband never really did anything that was illegal. He never sped. He never did literally anything. I mean, he was so afraid of, how do I put it? He was very legalistic. He lived by rules and laws. He is one who thrived with the structure. Unfortunately, there was a secret into him that I did not know. I had no clue, none whatsoever, that he had a past, and still carrying over into our marriage. When I met him and we got married and all of that process, I had no idea that he had what we call a secret sin. And that was pretty devastating, actually. That was one of the things that I was very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? I was beyond shocked. I was devastated, absolutely bulldozed when this had happened. And it was something that nobody can prepare for. We were financially okay. We were not well off. He was a business person. I'm not going to mention his career or the crime that he committed, but we had just moved to a new town a few years prior. We were starting up a business, started our lives, and we got a home and had the debt of cars and home and business loans and etc. So we were okay, but we were not made of money. And so when he was arrested, I had to decide whether or not what I was going to do. The problem is that we had to get lawyers. We had to post bond, which was astronomical, or bail. We had to do pretrial services. Luckily, his mother was able to help with most of the big expenses at first. I mean, she really stepped up to the plate. So when someone loses a spouse to prison, it doesn't affect just them, it affects the entire family, the friends, the entire community that surrounds the person. So what I want to talk to you today about is basically the financial spectrum of all of this. And there's a lot of things people don't realize. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take a sip. I've had this allergy cough. I'm going to check my sound because someone's telling me there's no sound again. And I cannot believe that there would be no sound again when I have all of my sound on. So let me go to my Facebook page. I apologize, guys. I just got to make sure it's not them and me. Y'all know how this is. So when the arrest happened, we ended up in a big financial struggle. The arrest happened. Okay, I've got sound. I need to inform them it's on their end. So the problem is there's a lot of people who are texting. I do get comments. I really encourage you guys to comment, like, subscribe. This is an interactive. I will answer your questions. I will do everything I can to be that for you. So please don't hesitate to comment and ask questions. So when he was arrested, had to get an attorney immediately. The next day had to post bond, had to pay for pretrial services. And thank God for his mother. She helped with a lot of that. But pretrial services was hundreds of dollars a month. Could have been closer to 1,000. The other thing is that when you lose someone, when someone is arrested, and even though they come home and they may be on house arrest and they're out on bond or probation, you've got fees. You've got probation and bond fees. I mean, not probation, pretrial services. You've got to get drug tested. Most people nowadays, you've got to pay for that. You've got to pay for the supervision. You have to pay for any monitoring you're on, whether it's ankle monitoring, computer monitoring, house monitoring, whatever it may be. And it can run into over $1,000 a month or more when you have a spouse that is on what I call pretrial services, waiting to go to trial, but out of jail on conditions. There is a lot of stress that is on the non-bonded spouse, i.e., probably you. A lot of times, if that person has an income that's based on their business, and if their arrest and the charges become very public, which mine did, you lose a lot of your clientele. You lose a lot of your finances. You lose your friends. You lose a lot. The biggest hit's the financial. And you may have to get a second job. You may have to get a job. If you were like me, I was a stay-at-home parent. I had to start working to help supplement, and even then it wasn't enough. It is not cheap. I will tell you that. But we're not going to go through all of those today. We are going to talk about, what do you do to help you? Once your husband, now it depends, when your husband or spouse or child or whomever is, and you're living with them in the same household, that's part of the caveat to a lot of this. If you are dependent on their income and it decreases to a certain amount, you can definitely apply for food stamps, government assistance in that aspect. You can also go from churches to Salvation Army, Goodwill, and a lot of those places to get some assistance. A lot of times, if you need help, like with an electric bill, they'll pay half of the electric bill, but once only 3 months. So it's not a ton of assistance out there. So looking back, if I had things to do again, I would honestly put $100 a month away into an emergency fund. And I know a lot of people have an emergency fund. You need a separate emergency fund, because I'll be honest with you, it is 1 second decision can put you and or your loved one in prison. I'm not lying. There are good people out there. I'm following a case right now. Mr. George Kelly, he had illegal immigrants on his property in Arizona. He has a ranch that borders Mexico, and he shot the gun up in the air. And why he do that? Because he heard gunshot when he was in the house. He gets his gun and goes outside. They can see people running, and he shoots up in the air. He didn't shoot at anybody. And these people are 115 yards away or more. And later that day, after the Border Patrol came out and investigated, they didn't find anybody. Nothing was amiss. They left. Well, 3.5 hours to 4 hours later, Mr. Kelly's dogs find a deceased person on the property. Probably the person that was with the deceased is the one that did the shooting. But this gentleman never broke the law a day in his life. He's a good old boy rancher, and now he's been in jail, he's been indicted, and he is on trial for his life. What I'm saying to you is nobody is above, no family, no marriage is above somebody going to jail, even on an innocent action. Okay? So, with that, the struggles of having a spouse in prison. It is a major impact on your financial life. So, putting money aside, um, whatever you choose, $20 a month, $100 a month, and having that for attorney's fees. And attorney's fees can be not just for prison, but I highly recommend you have an attorney's fees account. You never know. You may have to contest a will. I don't know, but it's always good to have one. Depending on the length of the incarceration, it might mean having to cover all the household expenses that is normally shared between the two of you. Once your spouse is incarcerated, they pay for nothing. Let me say that again. They pay for nothing. Why do I say that? Because it is true. If they work at 10 to 30 cents an hour, and then if you are not able to send them money for their canteen, which is food and snacks and extra deodorants and toothpaste and toothbrush and shampoos and all of those things, and sometimes so many times a year they can buy socks and underwear and extra things, TV, radios, whatever it is, they will use that 10 to 30 cents an hour they make if they're permitted to work towards their canteen. Otherwise, they're going to depend on you and other family members. Depending on the prison, the amount that they could spend every 2 weeks is 150 to 300, depending on the jail or prison. That is very important. But just think about that. We'll ballpark at 150 a week. So, well, let's see, 150 every 2 weeks to 300. It will ballpark at 150 a week. That's $600 a month. 300 to 600, just depends on the prison. The other thing is phone calls. They're going to need you to put money on their books for phone calls, stamps, paper, pen. Nothing in prison is free. The first thing you get when you walk in that door is the last free thing you will get. And if you're out, they will give you bare minimum. Toilet paper. Oh my gosh, I know that somebody ended up rationing 4 squares of toilet paper a day. They had no way to earn an income. They had no way to be able to, get any financial aid. They didn't have any family. So with that, yeah, it can get that desperate. So let's talk if, in addition, there may be costs associated with having a partner in prison, such as travel expenses. You got to visit them. I mean, you don't have to. If you visit them, it cost me almost $200 each trip that I made. Food, gas, etc. Okay, depending on how far away you may have to spend the night. That is very difficult. Oh, and that also paid for the vending machines and everything else that you do while you're in the visit. And the vending machines are expensive, very expensive. Plus, if you have the kids, you'll have to deal with all the other costs associated with raising the children alone. In my divorce decree, I got $200 a month, but however, how was that person going to pay that $200 a month? They could not pay it. Sorry, my dog is in Sensei. Sorry, my dog is trying to crawl in my lap under the desk, and she's a lab. So the situation here is that you have children to take care of as well, and all of that is going to fall on you. And if you're lucky, you will have someone paying the child support for them, i.e., like my ex-mother-in-law. We didn't have the most perfect relationship, but she did step up to the plate and take care of her son's responsibilities as far as what was directed in the divorce decree. So $200 a month doesn't pay for much of anything. So if you do get a divorce, and or if they're in jail and you go for child support, just understand that most of the time the child support racks up until they get out of jail. So you can't depend on that. So that's why it's important to plan ahead as soon as you can. The moment you know that your spouse has been charged with a crime and may go away and may be incarcerated, you need to start your financial planning then. You may have to sell things, to have a big garage sale, cut back on a lot of unnecessary things. You may have to seek out a lot of assistance, and we're going to go through that. The one thing I have to say is that many people say, "Oh, well, this, you can." There's a lot of help out there. No, there's not a lot of emotional help. There's not a lot of financial help out there. Even though you don't have to go through it alone, and you can confide in your friends and your family, you need to find a way to get therapy. I highly recommend finding a therapist for you and your children. A lot of times the insurance will pay for a certain number of visits per year. There's also your clergy, if you go to church, etc. So what benefits can you possibly get? Let's talk about the Social Security benefits. Now, if a person goes to prison for more than a month, all of their Social Security benefits will stop. This can be temporary or permanent depending on the prison sentence and the type of benefits they were receiving and the type of crime. If you've been receiving Social Security benefits on your spouse account prior to them going to prison, you may continue receiving them. However, if your spouse has been receiving the Social Security benefits, they will stop. If your spouse is not receiving any form of Social Security benefits before they get, as I say, carted off to prison, you will not be able to claim benefits under their account. A long, long time ago, your children used to get benefits if the parent was in prison. That is no longer a case. People kept telling me, "Oh, well, their dad's in prison. You should be able to get his." No mas. You can't do that anymore. However, you may apply for Social Security benefits on your own account, provided you meet the qualifications of being disabled. For instance, if you have enough work credits and you can prove that you have a disability, you may qualify for SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. Or if your income and resources fall below a certain threshold, then and only then may you be able to claim SSI, Social Security Supplementary Income. Social Security Supplementary Income. The only way you'll know is to contact the Social Security Administration and visit with them and fill out the application. I will tell you, if you get Social Security income based off of the earnings you have, it is very, very tricky in the sense that not only, they will give you money if your income falls below a certain amount. However, every penny that comes to you, whether it's a gift, whether a kind family at church gives you $100, no matter what you get in the form of cash or gift cards, with one exception of a birthday gift up to a certain dollar amount or Christmas gifts up to a certain dollar amount, you have to claim it. Okay? Let's talk about, oh, by the way, it is a very, very strict rule. So if you lie and manipulate and they find out, you can be brought up on charges and they will make you reimburse. So you got to be honest. Number 2, I want to talk about our veterans cash benefits. If your spouse was receiving VA benefits, they will reduce or completely terminate it once that person is convicted of a felony or is in prison for more than 60 days. Yeah. However, any benefits not paid to the veteran in prison can be appointed to their spouse or children or dependent parents. For instance, if your spouse was receiving the VA pension, and the payment will completely stop upon their 61st birthday in prison. 61st day in prison. The full amount can be appointed to you or your children. Appointments, however, are contingent upon the individual need, meaning you will need to prove to the VA you have a certain income that falls or below a certain standard of living. It must be qualified for. It is not a guarantee. According to the VA, they determine your eligibility needs by considering multiple factors: your personal income and living expenses, the amount of benefits to be appointed, and the income and living expenses of other dependents, if any. Appointments aren't automatically granted. You must file a claim. Now, let's talk about TANF, or the Temporary Assistance to the Needy Families. Unfortunately, if you're receiving disability or SSI and food stamps, you will not qualify for this. But let's look at it. TANF is meant to assist families when a parent can no longer provide basic needs. The administration on a state level, so the policies and the amount tend to vary from state to state. But in general, if you qualify for TANF, you have to be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, and legally qualified alien, a resident of the state in which you are applying, an unemployed or underemployed, and have low income. The states often require that you are either pregnant or taking care of a child below the age of 18, under the age of 18, and the head of your household. So you could be 17 years old and the head of your household. Say you got a spouse or boyfriend who's the father of your child, and you're 17, and you're the only one between you and the minor infant, then you can claim. Okay. The SNAP program, which is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or i.e. food stamps, is a program that is also, with that, you can get Medicaid. If you qualify for SNAP, or if you qualify for SSI, you possibly can get Medicaid. I didn't go over that. The eligibilities can vary from state to state, but in general, if you have below the standard of income versus your total expenses and total assets. So if you have property that's in your name that you're not making payments on, if you've got any kind of stocks, bonds, any life insurance policies and things like that, that can affect you. But in general, it's going to be more primarily based on your income and your assets. Living with an incarcerated spouse is incredibly difficult and is very emotional and financially very strapping. For those who struggle with those financial hardships due to having a partner in prison, there are options available, but you have to really navigate those options carefully. So please talk to your Social Security and Social Security Administration, your VA, SNAP, and TANF. There's also the WIC program out there for women, infant, and children. Depending on the age of the children, you may qualify for that as well. So, I want to talk about the inmate calling services called Global Tel. It lowers jail calls per minute by rates by up to 90% for jails calls from the U.S. to facilities. So, meaning if you live in the States, you can sign up and get a certain number and you pay $45.99 for 90 days. There are some things like that you can do. So Global Tel's, GLOBALTAL''S, is an inmate calling system you can use, and that will help you with that expenses. Now, so here's some more things to think about. When you find out that your spouse is going to definitely go away, when they're convicted, depending on the crime, but most of the time they leave that moment the court's over, they haul them off. However, depending on the crime, sometimes they have a certain number of days. I think it's no more than 30 days, depending on the state, to get their affairs in order. One of the things I really, really, really impress the importance on is that you get financial power of attorney from the spouse that is being incarcerated. If they're not going to go to jail that day, the first day after the conviction, between the conviction and the sentencing, if they are able to stay out, not all are, I advise the two of you to go to your bank and get the power of attorney from the banks that you have accounts and have them turn over power of attorney for their portion of any bank accounts that you may have. You go to the home lender company, you get a power of attorney for you to deal with those. Power of attorney in general from a lawyer to handle basic needs such as car payments and things like that. The other thing are medical bills and such. Most hospitals, but they don't advertise it, but most hospitals do have an indigent care system, which means if you have to go to the hospital with your child and you owe the hospital $30,000, you can file for that benefit. It will help you. When you get on food stamps, you will also probably get on Medicaid. If you're on disability, and you do get on disability, number one, you apply for Medicare. Medicare and Medicaid covers pretty much 100% together. Medicare will cover, that's only for disability, those on disability, 80% of medical bills. Medicaid is a financial income based, and that will cover the additional 20%. You may have to downsize on your vehicle if you are making payments on the vehicle and if you are considered upside down, meaning you owe more than it's worth. You need to navigate that. You guys need to discuss before they go to prison, or if they've already gone, then you need to get legal advice. Once again, none of this is legal advice. This is all my personal experience. Only what I have gone through and learned. But one of the things is that my car was in my husband's name. The house was in my husband's name. When we got the house, it was in both our names. But unfortunately, when he refinanced the house, he didn't put my name on it, and I didn't know it. And then when he went to prison, my name wasn't on the house, and I lost the house. Get your name on everything: cars, houses, property, titles for your land, whatever you have. The other thing is get a power of attorney in case you are not, now, like with me, I asked my spouse the day before trial to please, just in case. Now, he swore he was going to come out innocent. I believed he was coming out innocent, but just in case, and we had a hot discussion over it, I asked him to give a power of attorney to somebody that was very close to me that he could trust, because didn't know if he was going to come home. And I'm glad I did that, because I'm not the best with finances. I can handle day-to-day stuff, but don't ask me to do taxes. Don't ask me to handle all that. So, um, that is why I'm very, very, very adamant about getting a power of attorney to somebody other than me. The other thing is I made sure that the children there was a medical power of attorney that would go in effect for the children if my spouse was incarcerated, and if I had to have surgery, if I had to go under general anesthesia, or I was in a coma, I had power of attorneys for my children that only were enacted in that situation, and then were and ended the moment I was released from the hospital. It's so in case something happens, somebody else can take care of the children. If your spouse has been arrested and stands to be in prison for a year or more, I highly recommend all these things. Please don't forget to take care of yourself. You need to make sure you have a financial income. You need to make sure you have money for you and the kids. You need to start planning the moment there is an arrest. Otherwise, here, otherwise, you are setting yourself for a lot of headache and a lot of difficult situations. It is not fun having to try to plan and to think about a life without your spouse that you have loved, you've married, you loved, and had children with. It's very difficult to think that they could do something to end up in jail. The other thing is you yourself need to understand that you can't bear their guilt and shame. That's why I believe counseling is important. There are some organizations that will give you counseling for free. Other than that, at this point, I am going to leave you with that. I don't want to overwhelm you. I'll go more in depth later, but if you are walking through this right now, and I pray you're not, but if you are and you have any questions, please, you can comment. You can reach out to me. I will list in the comments my burner phone tomorrow morning when I go through, because I go through and edit and thumbnail these and kind of save them permanently. I will list my burner phone and you may reach out. Please start saving money. You never know when you're going to need it. It could be a car wreck. I'm not saying your spouse was drinking and driving, but there could be a car wreck and your spouse is at fault and you guys need, or you're at fault and you guys need an attorney. Put money away. Even if it's $5 a week, put money aside for an attorney. That way, if something happens, you at least can walk in the door and say, I have this. That was one of the biggest issues. I don't even know who that is. Had I done that, it would have been easier. I was blessed and lucky that I had a mother-in-law who was willing to step up to that plate. And I'm very grateful for that. So with that, I'm going to say farewell. I am sorry you're going through this. I pray for you. And just know that you will get through this. No matter where you are on this journey, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's been 15 years for me. I have rebuilt my life. I have 2 happy, healthy young adults, children, and there's life after it. So, with that, be blessed. Have a great evening. And remember, this too will pass. You will come out the other side stronger than you ever thought you'd ever be. Until next time, I'm Ada Kay, and we will see you hopefully next week. Thanks. Bye bye. Have a great day.